Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us on Finding the Oasis Within. I feel extremely blessed to have you here today. How's everything going on your side?
Really good. I'm looking forward to this.
Beautiful. So typically what I love to do with guests is I love to ask a question to get all of this started. And the question that came through to me for you was this. You know, when we're young, we are asked a very specific question. What do you want to be when you grow up? And as a child for yourself, did your answer match up with who you are today?
No, it didn't. I thought I was going to be a doctor. At least that's what my mom wanted for me. But luckily, I had kind of a midlife crisis at age 12 that led to me being like suicidally depressed and just having a really hard time. So I got into psychology. And by the time I was 13, I was meditating and learning about hypnosis and reading every self-help book I could read.
Oh, wow. Okay. I love that answer because I think typically when we're young, we think we know what we want, but we really don't. And so how did you figure out this is the area of work you want to be in? Because I know you are a psychotherapist, you're an author, you're a podcast host, you're a speaker. So when was it when you realized, okay, this is actually really what I want to do and I want to be of service?
Maybe around last week.
After 10 books?
Yeah, I started to see a pattern there. Anyways, no, I really went into the whole psychology field and then spirituality because I wanted to heal myself. And then I had a tendency towards seeing how lazy I was and that I wanted methods that were really, really easy to do, that had the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak. And found out that when I wrote books about that a lot of people were interested in that. And that got me on Oprah and the Today Show and Tonight Show and all those things. So I didn't really know I was an author until I was about 30 when somebody suggested I write a book about this stuff and went on from there.
Oh, wow. And I know, and so you guys, Jonathan has written 10 books. Is this your 10th book or is this the 11th?
Actually, that's my 14th.
Oh, this is your 14th.
Yeah, you miss a month and you can miss a lot here.
Seriously. Okay. Well, this is the 14th book.
Yeah.
And I was telling Jonathan before we started recording that this book is playing a really big part in my life right now. And I knew it was divine timing for you to be on this podcast. But this book is such a beautiful book because you're very transparent and you're very visible with all of the experiences you've had in your personal life, in your relationship with your marriage with Kirsten, I believe her name is, and with all these different teachers that you've interviewed and whatnot. And what I really loved about this book is how much you speak about the divine. And a lot of the things that I try to focus on this podcast is how much of an importance it is to have a really beautiful connection with source and with expanding our consciousness. So in your experience, do you think that your connection with source has been a big part of your own inner and outer healing?
Well, definitely. I think there's no better healer than when we connect with, say, whatever you want to call it, source or consciousness, awareness, love within, God, and not only has it helped me in terms of my psychological healing, but it's also, I credit it with my career success because a lot of the books that did well were almost channeled to me, meaning I wrote them in like 4 days. And,
Wow.
It was, and even getting on the Oprah show a bunch, there were some kind of weird things that happened that made all that possible. So I think as I aligned with, call it higher vibration or God or whatever, that, magical things started to happen.
Okay. And then because you said weird things were happening. I'm assuming these are like synchronicities and there's something that you put out into the universe and then you started to read your signs. So for somebody who is just getting started in spirituality and trying to ask the correct question and to receive the correct answers, what do you think is the best way for someone to get started to understand how to read our signs?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one thing, the question I always ask is, how can I be of greater service? But sometimes I say, like, I need to make a decision about this. Please give me a sign by next Wednesday. And once I was trying to decide whether I should go to India to meet a certain guru. And I said, please give me a sign by next Wednesday. Well, Wednesday, there were no signs after about a week. So I turned on the TV just because I'm, exhausted thinking about it. And the first thing that is on is a preacher show, which I normally don't watch. But the first thing he says is, you need to go to India. And I thought, well, that's an interesting coincidence. It hadn't occurred to me yet that that was a direct sign. But I'm like now riveted. What's he mean by that? And he says, you need to go to India and see how those people live. And then he says, I'm getting a message that, Jonathan, you especially need to go to India. I said, well, that's a pretty good sign.
It's very clear.
Yeah. So, not all of them have been that clear, but sometimes I think of it like the cosmic hot and cold game. You hide a pen and somebody tells you you're getting warmer or cooler. Well, when you take an action, you can listen to the universe to see if it feels like you're getting warmer or if it feels like you're getting cooler. And so that's how I've often done it. And that led me to write all these different books and other things I do.
So do you think that feeling is connected to intuition?
Yeah. I think intuition, divine guidance, all these things are different words for similar things.
And do you think that we have a hard time with trusting ourselves or trusting our intuition? And if so, what are good ways for us to practice how to trust ourselves more and to trust intuition?
Well, you're asking the right questions. I think like any skill, it's a little bit learned. So when I get a like what feels like intuitive guidance, I take that one step and then I see, well, did that seem right? If I take that step and it goes terrible, I go, well, maybe that was my ego voice, not my intuitive voice. So I don't see it as a black and white thing. I think we always have to check in with our body, check in even with a trusted friend. Does this sound crazy? I mean, my first success was doing a video on tantric sexuality. At the time, I was living in a van. I didn't have any video experience, and I didn't have any money to make the video. And my girlfriend at the time said I didn't know anything about sexuality. So we were definitely starting from square one. But I kept on, every step I took felt right, and ended up being the best-selling video in America in 1994. So
wow.
That was a start, like maybe I should trust this feeling, trust this intuition, and it's generally worked out pretty well for me.
I agree. I think that intuition becomes a game when you start to become more interested in what is this power and what is this gift. I really truly do believe that we are born with different gifts and different capabilities, and we come into this world with learning how to answer each of our callings. And I'm really big on this platform about oneness consciousness. Are you able to speak a little bit more for people who don't really know what oneness consciousness is, or some people call it Christ consciousness? There's so many different words that people use, but are you able to give us a rundown? What is oneness consciousness, and how can somebody connect to that type of energy?
Well, I think there's two things. In the Enlightenment Project book, we talk about like 4 different types of enlightenment, and they're really different experiences. What you're calling oneness consciousness would either be what's called location 2 or 3. One way of being in this form of consciousness is where you just feel a love for everything. That's like you always have love, and you're always feeling love, whether it be to people or traffic or anything. I mean, those people are always in love. That's one way. Another way, though, is you kind of lose yourself. It's called non-duality. And there's less of a sense of you. It's more like you're merged with your environment. Everything is one. It's all coming from it's all like one energy, including you. So those are 2 distinct experiences. They're both fantastic. And I try in the book to explain some methods that lead to both of those experiences. And, I interviewed everybody from late Mother Teresa to Ram Dass to the Dalai Lama. So I'm always asking them, what's your latest technology, best method for getting us to these higher states of consciousness? And And these methods keep getting better and better.
And what do you think, from all the people that you've interviewed, what would be a really good answer that we can share with our listeners from your perspective of what you've learned through that journey of asking all of these different spiritual teachers? Do they all have the same answer, or do they have different answers? Or is there a specific answer that stood out to you that can help someone today that's listening?
Well, it's interesting. Now that I've interviewed 100 of these teachers, I used to ask them, what's the purpose of life? What are we here to do? I stopped doing that because the first 70 of them gave the exact same answer. If you can get, the Dalai Lama, Ram Dass, Deepak Chopra, and Mother Teresa to all agree on the exact same answer, then, that one seems to be done. And for $14.95, people can find out that answer. No, I'm kidding.
I love your sense of humor.
That has helped me on the path. Anyways, so the answer people gave was really, people are here to do two things. One is to find peace and love within themselves. Now, that's not an easy thing to do. We always try and find peace through money or making everything just the way we want. But, Jesus, Buddha said the kingdom of heaven's within. So doing meditation and other techniques so you can tap into that peace quickly and easily as much as possible. That's step one. Step two is, once you have that abundance, that inner abundance, go out and help the world and help other people. Because Absolutely. As you know, it's a crap show out there, and the world could use some really enlightened people now.
Absolutely. And I actually want to go a little bit deeper on meditation, because you do speak a lot about it in this book. And a lot of people think that meditation is just sitting in a corner, crisscross, closing your eyes. But there's different forms of meditation. So I would love for you to kind of give us a skim around, what is meditation? And is there really an infinite amount of techniques of how to meditate and how to connect with your inner self, with source, with consciousness?
Mm-hmm. Well, a simple definition of meditation might be anything that helps to quiet your mind and open your heart. I think that could be a very simple, generic definition. But I liken it to food. I don't like broccoli, but that doesn't mean that I don't like all food. It means I don't like broccoli. And I love potato chips. So, and some meditations are kind of like broccoli. They're hard to do at first, but maybe good for you in the long run. And some are more like potato chips, where they feel fantastic at first, but they don't really do that much in the long run. So a lot of people only know one or two methods. So I probably present a dozen methods in the book. And generally, if people try different things, they find what really does work for them. But, most of us are using methods from 2,000 years ago, like Vipassana meditation or Hatha yoga. They were great 2,000 years ago, but we don't use computers from 2,000 years ago. We don't use computers from 20 years ago. So I encourage people to find things like in the Enlightenment Project book, where it's kind of the most up-to-date methods that tend to be a lot more powerful and a lot easier than some of these things that we got from ancient religions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are so many different ways to connect with our inner selves and to gain that inner peace. And I also believe that a lot of people are just looking for that mystical experience. Because I know for myself, when I first started the spiritual journey and I was meditating, I was just, my ego was really hungry just to have this mystical experience, so I can feel like I'm on this high all day, every day. And like, if any negative emotions or feelings or thoughts came through, then I'd be like, oh my God, I'm not doing this right. So I do believe that it's very important to figure out through trying different techniques of meditation, but I also believe the intention should be having fun. There's a teacher, and I'm sure you've heard of him, Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Sure.
So he talks a lot about, in meditation, it's better to go in with like this loopy, fun, childlike energy, especially if you are going to sit in the corner, crisscross, close your eyes and tune in. But see, he says that's probably one of the easiest ways to really go into this field called the quantum field, where it's like a field of all possibilities. You're familiar with quantum field, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Joe as well.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the quantum field and what is this field that everybody keeps talking about? And is it something that is important for us to connect with?
Well, think of one definition of the quantum field is your just simple awareness. We all are a character. You're you, I'm me, but really in this moment, we're both just an awareness, and you could say awareness is a field of all possibilities,
Mm,
meaning out of this energetic field of consciousness or awareness comes the world, comes our personality, comes our ego. But when we stop identifying so much with our ego and start identifying with what could be called the quantum field or pure awareness, not only do you feel expanded and even like one with everything, but you start to have these synchronicities, these fortunate happenings happen because you're kind of aligning with the reality of the universe.
right.
So it's a nice thing to be able to tap into. Even if you weren't aligning with the universe, it feels fantastic. So, you get two benefits.
It really does. And I've noticed just out of my own experience, the biggest thing that's helped me was self discipline and showing up every day and doing the work, but not doing in a work where it's like, oh, I have to sit and do this now just to connect with the quantum field and to connect with God. It's a different energy where I'm like, wow, I really get to do this. And I feel so grateful and I feel so blessed to have this awareness. So can you talk a little bit about because I know in your book you talk about three methods about how people can stay motivated. Because I know a
Mhm.
lot of people have some challenging times trying to stay motivated, showing up to do the work, and being self disciplined. So I would love for you to kind of just go a little bit deeper.
Well, it really helps to be part of a group that you're part of so you feel connected and that group even holds you accountable. So, one of the reasons why people go to work every day, even if they don't like it, is they have other people depend on them.
Mm,
So I have a buddy I talk to once a week, and he's always checking on me, and I'm checking on him. But being part of a spiritual group that can certainly help you be accountable. And then there is like having a buddy, one person who is calling you once a week or checking in with you a couple times a week. And then I kind of turbocharge my motivation. I say, for example, I'm going to meditate at least half an hour a day, every day for the next week. And
mm.
any day that I don't meditate for half an hour, I'm going to take out $1 and rip it up.
Whoa. You came up by yourself with that one?
Yes, I did. I came up with that
That's a
one.
good one.
I figure I might as well use my cheapness to help my spiritual growth. I've taught this technique to thousands of people, and even they use it with, drug addiction. Like
Mm.
if you're going to drink, every drink you have to rip up $1. And I've found that people can lose weight. The average person loses 25 pounds if they use that method, and it only costs them like $2 because
Oh,
usually they
wow.
do whatever they say they're going to do, but every now and then you blow it and you have to rip up $1. And so, yeah, I presented this on the Oprah show, and thousands of people reported that it changed their lives. I've used it mostly for making sure I meditate every day and take really good care of myself. And every now and then, I'd say it cost me about $2 a month,
That's
which
not
I'd say
bad.
is a really good use for doing all the things I say I want to do to take care of myself.
Absolutely. Okay. So, from what I understand, accountability is very important to have somebody, some sort of buddy system that's checking in, making sure you're doing the work. And then the
Mhm.
second thing is having some sort of incentive. So,
Yeah.
your method, I really do like that method because a lot of people are not going to rip up a dollar bill. So,
I've
I
had
love that
people
one.
I've had people snort $20,000 a week stop to avoid ripping up $1.
What?
Yeah, 'cause I
Whoa.
got to work with some celebrities and they couldn't
Right.
stop, but the idea of ripping up $1 just jolted them awake, and they actually stopped doing some very destructive habits.
Okay. Well, let's say somebody doesn't have a support system yet. Because I know when I first started spirituality, I actually was really embarrassed to talk about it. And I
Mhm,
didn't want anybody to know that I had this deep sense to me.
mhm.
So if somebody doesn't have that support system, they don't really know what incentive to set up for themselves. Is there any other ways that someone can motivate themselves to show up and do the work if they feel like they're lazy or like, why am I even doing this? What's the point?
I think it's really important to find that support, whether it be through books or
Mm,
YouTube videos or organizations that might have similar aims. There's a lot out there now. So it's not that hard. Even, just getting that daily support through a YouTube video. There's so many good teachers. Your podcast, I have my podcast called Awareness Explorers. And, all of this is free. And then making it as easy as possible. Like on my website, awarenessexplorers.com, I have 90 guided meditations from all the world's greatest teachers,
wow.
and they're all free. And you can just, listen for 10 minutes and be guided into a deep state of meditation. I don't want money to get in the way of people's spiritual involvement. So most of what I do is for free.
Hmm.
Uh, I have a website, the enlightenmentproject.net, in which I give away my 5 favorite techniques for free. And those are all techniques that can be done in under 2 minutes. And I think if people find ways to get to peace and love that are so easy that even a lazy person like me can do it, then if enough of people do that, then the world's going to change.
Oh yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you. Our energy is so contagious. And that's why. So I'm a mindset coach for women. And when I work with my clients, I always tell them, don't worry about trying to fix or heal the other person. It's more about you showing up as your higher self and being so in tune with source that your energy is actually what's going to be contagious and expand in that room. And naturally, people are also going to start feeling the energy because energy is everywhere. We are all energy. So
Mhm.
if we are all focused on our own vibration and our own frequency, absolutely this world would be a completely different place.
Yeah, yeah. And it looks like we've tried everything else, so why not try this?
I think it's a good last resort, I would say.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's fun to do. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've definitely had my moments where we all have challenges in this world. And in the book, you talked about how you interviewed the 40 spiritual teachers. This is from the book you guys called The Experience of God. So I think your books are available on Amazon, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
So you talk about how connection with source is really important and it can help us heal our illness and trauma. And you talk a lot about triggers. So I would love for you to talk to us and maybe you can share your story with your car accident at 30 where you decided to take like a homeopathic
Yeah.
path in order to kind of realize that this path can actually, taking like a spiritual path of needing to heal some sort of trauma or illness within yourself.
Okay. Well, I did have a serious car accident when I was about 30 and had a near-death experience, but it ended up that I had a bad back after that. It was very hard to stand or walk. And I tried all the regular medical things. I'm pretty persistent, but nothing worked at all. So I went to one guy and he said, as I walked in, he said, I don't need your x-rays or MRI. The reason why your back is bad is because your mom smoked 2 or 3 packs a day while you were in her womb, right? And I said,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how'd you know that? He said, oh, I can read it in your body. He said, take this homeopathic remedy, you'll be all better in a month. Well, at that time, I didn't believe in homeopathy. And so I thought it was ridiculous, but I tried everything else. So I
Mm-hmm.
took the pills and a month later I was totally better. So I realized that, everybody has certain beliefs and I've often experienced things outside of my belief, miracles or things. And then I finally concluded, okay, I don't know really what's going on. That's helpful because then you're more open. And the way things operate is through something called PFM. And that's how, my phone works. That's how this Zoom meeting works. That's how a lot of things work, quantum physics. And PFM, in case you don't know, stands for pure friggin' magic. And it's really interesting. If you ask people, have you ever experienced something miraculous that you couldn't explain? About 75% of Americans will say yes and then give
Mm-hmm.
you outlandish stories. So I started to see that although we live in a material world and we're focused on things like that, in reality, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. And there's a lot more possibilities for love and compassion and magic than most people tune into.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you do talk a lot about triggers. What is the best way for someone to be aware that something's triggering them? So what
Very
is a
simple.
trigger?
Very
Go ahead.
simple. You have a negative emotion. Negative emotions are all due to triggers. So, you see negative emotions and then what do you do about them? Of course, I talk about that a lot in the Enlightenment Project. But one method that stood out as I interviewed people is whatever you're triggered, let's say you're angry at someone, try to love that part that's angry. Try to just not resist it, not say you shouldn't be there, but actually love the part of you that's angry. And love dissolves all other things. It's like water in that way. So a lot of people can become less triggered because they're used to once they're triggered, they kind of send love to the part of them that was hurting, and it soon dissolves.
I do have a belief that love heals everything. And I know as cliche and as cheesy as that sounds, but I truly believe it because I've known and I've seen it work in my life. And I've had experiences where, and you know what I will bring up is the Lester, is
Lester
it?
love technique. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, this is the technique, you guys, that actually really changed my life, and I'm not exaggerating. When I started reading this book, I was going through my own challenges with trying to figure out how do I fully embody Tamara, and how do I really love her without anything externally. And I started reading this book, and I came across, well, there's a lot of methods. There's so much knowledge and wisdom in this beautiful book, but there was one that stood out to me, and I would love for you to talk about his story.
Yeah, okay. Well, Lester was the guy who in 1954, I believe, had a severe heart attack. He was only like 45, 46 years old, but the doctor said there's absolutely nothing we can do. Just go home and, try not to like tie your shoes because you die immediately. And so he's on his deathbed and he's thinking, well, when have I been happy in life? And he says, well, I really was happiest when I was giving love to other people. So he made a list of all the people he'd ever loved and he just started sending love to them. It
Hmm.
was his last dying thing. Well, after a few days, he still hasn't died. And in fact, he's full of energy and he's
Hmm.
feeling fantastic. So he starts jogging and soon he's jogging 25 miles a day because he's so filled with energy. And the doctors say that's impossible. You shouldn't even scratch your nose. Well, long story short, he lives another 45 years. And he teaches something called the Sedona method, which is a great method. And I talk about that in the book. But one of the things he did was he suggested that people make a list of all the people they've ever loved or felt good about and just spend a minute or so with each person sending them love. Well, I did that and I found it incredibly powerful. It's like being bathed in love, and love has a momentum to it. So, at first it's a little hard to find it. And by the end, it's like, oh my God, I love everything.
Hmm.
And my wife says it actually forms a energetic glow around me.
Oh,
She
wow.
says a little scary because, she doesn't even believe in that stuff. And I've had my brainwaves tested in that state. And there's actually the person said, you have the same brainwave state right now as the Dalai Lama. And
Wow.
I said, well, that sounds pretty good.
I think that's beyond good, Jonathan.
Right.
Yeah, I really loved his story, and it was so profound to me where I sat down, I wrote my list, but I even wrote people that I didn't have the best relationship with in the past. And I've realized how powerful it was for me personally because I started to do it every single day. And like you said, just a minute. It's so practical and so easy. And now it's a priority in my life where it's like when I wake up and before I go to bed, I
Wow.
close my eyes and I literally just like, okay, God, who am I sending love to today? I don't choose. And I just, wherever my finger goes, and I will choose that person and I sit there intentionally and I just send them the love. And because we are all one, it's
Yeah.
not just the love for the person, but I feel it so expanded in my mind, my body, and my spirit, like how you're saying, that sometimes I can't go to sleep because it
Yeah.
gives me so much energy where I'm like, great. I don't know if this is actually a good thing for me to do before I go to bed because I can't go to bed because of all the different energy and the feelings that I feel.
Yeah.
But I genuinely feel that it has tweaked something in my energy and it really created this alignment in me where now when I look at myself in the mirror, I don't see what I used to see in the past, which is a lot of flaws.
Huh.
Now I started to really see the beauty within myself. And when I look at her, I recognize her and I honor her. And this all started with writing a list of giving love to other people.
Mm.
So I really love this method, and I really appreciate you for putting this in the book because it changed my life. And I
Well,
would
thank
love
you.
for
That's inspiring to me. I'm going to have to do it every morning. I usually do it. I forget. It does fill me with energy. So it's instead of a cup of coffee, it feels a lot better.
much better, honestly. Actually, it's funny because I did it this morning and I drank a cup of coffee, and I think it gave me anxiety because it was way too much energy. But I would love for you to explain what's the process of how to give somebody love? Because I know a lot of people get confused on, well, what does that actually really mean? So can you break that down for us?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat individual. The way I do it is I think of anything that person has ever done that I approved of, liked, appreciated, or can imagine them doing.
Mm,
And that's kind of a way in. And then sometimes I will then just feel either compassion towards them or just great appreciation towards them, which is like a doorway entrance into feeling love for someone. But what I find is that the first few people I do it with, it's like a lot of things, it's like a wheel that once you get going, it gets faster and faster, and it's really easy. And then I'll throw in people that I don't like,
that's what I did.
and I can feel love for them too. It's great.
Okay, I love that. Thank you for the explanation. And listeners, I just want you to know that, the topics that we talk about, I always want to make sure I explain the how to, because there's so much knowledge and wisdom and information out there in this world that it is important to learn how to do things because there is a formula. But like Jonathan said, that there are so many different types of techniques, there's not one right way. So I don't want you ever thinking that meditation, for instance, if you're sitting down in a corner, this is the only way to connect, or Jonathan's method of sending love, that's the only way of sending love. There's so many different techniques. This is a great way, though, for you to just be introduced to a different way of life. Because a lot of times in our society, people will tell you, well, if you don't like this person, just cut them off, screw them, who cares, blah, blah, blah. But what you have to understand is, yes, have boundaries. If you need to cut that person off, cut that person off. But it's really nice to be able to still have a civil energy between you and that person, because whatever you put out into this world, what happens, Jonathan? Does it come back to us or
Comes
what?
back to us. Yeah. Like it or not, that's the way it is.
It really does. And, let's switch real quick and talk about relationships. And I
Okay.
know you are a psychotherapist, you are a couples counselor, and you share a lot of things in the book about, well, specifically, what are the 3 common shared elements you've noticed in unhealthy relationships and romantic relationships?
Well, I would say just make it really simple. Like in real estate, they say location, location, location. In relationships, it's blame, blame, and blame. Or
Mm,
you could say blaming, shaming, and complaining. And it's what we're taught to do. And you have to learn how to go against those tendencies if you want to have a great relationship. And it's not easy. So I give, specific methods in the book for people to take more responsibility and be more honest, and also to connect more intimately with their partner. Because, if you look at the word intimacy, it has the instructions in it, into me see.
mm,
But we aren't taught how to do that. So sometimes little methods help point us in the right direction.
absolutely. And, I've noticed in myself in the past when I was in relationships, when I would get triggered, I've realized they were triggers that actually would still happen to me when I wasn't even in a relationship. And it's almost like sometimes when we are in a relationship, it amplifies our challenges. Is that
Uh-huh.
something that you also saw while you were doing couples counseling and stuff like that?
Yeah, because anytime you're dealing with love, what's unlike love shows up. So in romantic relationships, you get to see your stuff or your
Mm-hmm.
triggers. And if you're a spiritual person, that's a great opportunity because you want to work through that. You want to either heal those wounds or not identify so much with that part of you that gets angry or whatever it does. And excuse me. So I find that having relationships, romantic and otherwise, is a great like modern day form of yoga.
Mm. Talk about that, because I know you talk about that, how it's all intertwined with yoga and source and relationships in the book.
Well, the great teacher Ram Dass said that he thought relationships were a form of yoga as basically a method to get to God, because love is our actual nature. And what you want to do is see the obstacles to love. Now, if you want to see the obstacles to being a really loving person, there's nothing better than to be in a relationship, because those obstacles tend to show up.
Absolutely.
And if you don't just blame your partner, then you start to see, oh, I guess I have an issue with this, or I tend to overreact and have a trigger whenever this person does something.
So I'm going to give you a scenario, because now I'm
Okay.
curious. Let's say I was in a relationship
Okay.
and I was the one who was doing the self-development work, spiritual work. I'm starting to awaken to myself, to source, to my purpose, to my mission. But my partner and is not interested in any of this stuff. What would be the best thing for me to do? Do I force this person to see my view and to see, here's a path and you should walk on this path? Should I accept this person for who they are? Should I leave this person? What do you think?
Well, we can eliminate the first one. Forcing people onto a path never works.
Mm-hmm.
And blaming a person for not being interested, that doesn't work. Never, when you blame someone, do they say, oh yeah, now I see what you're talking about. Thank you. That doesn't happen.
Mm-mm.
So you can practice radical acceptance.
Okay.
And also find the areas that you do have in common. You're using maybe meditation as a way to peace. They might be using money as a way to peace. You're both interested in peace. You just have different methods. And even though you may not share spirituality, what you call spirituality, you might share a love of dogs or cats or nature or waterfalls or other things. So you have to see, is it possible to share enough of myself with this person? And if there's really different values there, then you might say, yeah, this isn't going to work long term.
I love the answer, because it shows us that sometimes our ego wants to tell us that we're better than the other person and that we know more and that the person should follow us. And your answer was so genuine in a way where it's kind of like, it's not just about you. It's you honoring your partner and their path, because who are you to tell this person what's the right thing to do?
Yeah, you might direct them in a way that is totally wrong for them. And I try not to play God, because I've been proven humble and wrong so many times.
Well, it's funny because you really actually do talk a lot about your relationship with your wife and your own challenges and whatnot. And then, like, for your wife, is she into this work as you are?
She's into spirituality, but not the same path. So we have to learn to accept each other's paths, which are very different.
I love that, though. That's really cool to hear. And I really honor that, actually, because I know it's not easy, but it's doable. So there is a part in the book also, and it was one of my favorite parts. And you talk a lot about surrender, service, and devotion. Are you able to talk about what is surrender and how does somebody surrender? Because a lot of people get confused thinking that surrender is about giving up.
Yeah. Well, another word for surrender, which might be more accurate, is allow reality to be fully as it is, which is not what we normally do. We're normally saying, yeah, it'd be better if this person, me, had more money, or my partner did not get angry. So surrender is I allow reality to be as it is fully without resisting it. Now, you might change something, you might break up with a relationship, but in a moment, you can say, I'm not going to resist, deny, distract, blame. I'm just going to feel reality as it is. That to me is surrender. And then, service is you realize some of us have more money, more peace, more talents than others. And part of that gift is to give it away. So like right after this podcast, I'm going to the local jail and I teach meditation.
Oh, wow.
And
that's lovely.
It's really fun. And, I know about meditation. I'm not in jail. I have a free hour. Why not? And it's like a love affair. They love me. I love them. It's not even like a sacrifice. It becomes when I feed my dog, it's not like, oh, I gotta feed my dog. It's more like I get to feed my dog 'cause it makes her happy, and when
Hmm.
she's happy, it makes me happy. And so we're all interconnected. And when you tap into service as a way of feeling good, then you really have a good thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm such a big fan of being of service and making sure that I do my part in the world. And I also believe it's really important, though, to fill your cup up first. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people are all about giving, 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 and they have a really hard time receiving. And so, is that something that you've also seen in your work where people are always just of service, and they're exhausted, they're tired, and not really happy in their life?
Yeah, that's why the all the teachers I interviewed said step one is fill yourself up with love and peace, however you get there.
Hmm.
Step two is from that abundance, give service. Don't start giving service if you feel terrible because it won't work. You'll just burn out.
Yeah, I truly believe that. And I actually see, a lot of people around me where I'm like, if you're not feeling well and you feel exhausted and you're
Yeah.
showing up and you're trying to do the work, I believe that's actually a really big indication that you have to step back and get back to building your foundation. Because I know in my life, I've made it my mission to build an inner strong foundation first before I'm even podcasting and speaking and on social media. Because I knew the moment that I've always known I was going to be a speaker. I've always known that I wanted to be of service. But I've realized that if I was in the public eye, it would be very easy to lose myself if I didn't have a really good foundation. So, do you have any recommendations on how somebody can build a pretty good inner foundation within themselves and to fill their cup up?
Well, of course, everything in the Enlightenment Project points in that direction, and
Mm-hmm.
through trial and error, you find what really works for you. That's why I give a lot of different pointers. And then you make a routine of it, like what you said earlier. You wake up and you focus on 10 people that you love for a minute, or you dance to your favorite music in the morning, or you practice breathing exercises, or whatever. Or, I love dogs, so I just spend 3, 4 minutes telling my dog how much I love her each morning while
Mm-hmm.
kissing her nose. It's really different for different people, but it feels great to be filled up from within.
Well, I love that. Well, Jonathan, it's been such a pleasure to have you on this podcast and to really walk on this journey with you with hitting all these different topics today. And typically, I love to ask my guests when you're going through your own challenges in life, how are you finding the oasis within or the peace within yourself to continue walking this awakened path?
hmm Yeah, it's a great question. Well, certainly meditation has helped a lot. And also, I would say having friends that I can be honest with,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't have to play teacher or author or any of that. I can play human being with, that's always helpful. Even my dogs, just having a being that can love you no matter what you're looking like at that moment. And reading other people's books or watching YouTube videos of famous teachers. They all help now, and in times of crisis, they can be a real good foundation.
Yeah, and I can definitely intuitively tell that learning for you is a big part of your life. And that's why you are still current and able to teach and able to bring books out here for us to read is because you love to learn as well. You didn't really cap yourself at a certain level where you're like, okay, I'm good. I don't want to learn no more. I can definitely see that. And I really appreciate what you put out in the world. I appreciate you being of service. And, if there's any other words you'd like to tell our listeners, this is your
Well,
time.
I would say two things. One is try a bunch of stuff, have an experimental attitude, and find what really seems to click for you. And also, get the free things I'm offering at theenlightenmentproject.net. Put in your email address, you get a free ebook, a free chapter from the book, a free audio meditation. All those things are a good place to start. And I think when you really have your heart, they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Mm-hmm.
When you're really interested in learning and getting to the next level, you're going to notice that people and books and all kinds of things start entering your life.
Yes, I will, guys. I will 100% say yes, yes, yes on that. Ask and you shall receive. I always preach this to everybody. Ask the right question and be open to receiving, and be open to the different possibilities of where this answer can come from, because it really comes from all places. People, movies, commercials, pets, numbers, it's all over the
Pictures
place.
on TV even.
Yeah, exactly. And Jonathan, last but not least, we typically on this podcast, we always take a deep conscious breath together. And then I would love for you to share a beautiful affirmation for our listeners to take with them for the rest of the day. So we'll begin with the breath. And whenever you're ready.
How about I am safe, loved, and fully secure right now. I am safe, loved, and fully secure right now.
I fully received that, and I hope you guys received it on yourself as well. I'll be linking all of his information in the Spotify. Everything will be on YouTube for you guys. And I really hope that you enjoyed this session as much as I did. Jonathan, thank you again for your time.
It was a great pleasure.
Yeah, I had such a fun time. It was a really great experience for me. And everybody, just know I'm sending you the divine love and support. Take care.